Hey everyone, we are live today talking all about how your CFO thinks that Google Ads is a money pit. And this is part 2, and it's all about measurement and data. Before we introduce ourselves, I just want to say that we are live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. If you've got questions, please put them in the comments. If you're watching back, welcome. You can always come and find us on LinkedIn and drop us a message if you want to ask any questions after this, if you've not been lucky enough to join live. So let's do some intros. Ian, welcome to our LinkedIn Live.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, how are you doing? You all right?
I'm good. Tell me a little bit about what you do at Launch, and also I think we've got a little icebreaker, which is to do with it's back to school day today. So I want to hear about an embarrassing incident to do with back to school in uniform.
Okay. So I'm Ian. I'm the head of data and analytics at Launch. Me and my team basically control and understand the measurement across all the different platforms that we use across the different channels and across the agency. I don't know. Going back to school, I don't have anything embarrassing, but there was one time that we had non-school uniform day at school, and my parents dressed me up in a bow tie and a waistcoat, and I looked like a snooker player, and it was quite embarrassing, but I worked it. I went to school and it was fine.
Did you start doing magic tricks or something? That would be good.
Yes, we've got a top hat.
I love it. Well, you definitely do magic with our data at Launch. So, well, I'm Jaye. I'm the CEO and founder at Launch. You're probably used to seeing me on these things if you've joined one of them before. I get to bring along our experts that we employ at Launch, and I'm very lucky to have as part of our team. And our goal with these things is always to educate and empower people to be able to do more and make more impact with their performance marketing. My little back to school story, one of the schools I went to actually had a cloak as part of the uniform, and it was awful. It was wool. It was in Devon, so it was like if it poured with rain, you'd be left with this heavy wool sagging cloak on you. But I always looked a little bit like I was in the Scottish Widow ad. And fun fact, I was actually at a party on Saturday night with the person who famously was the Scottish Widow in the advertising campaign. But that's a whole nother story. And I think right now we need to get back to what we're talking about, which is Ian. Why is measurement such an important part now of getting Google Ads right?
It's the change in landscape, how different it's been. The platform itself has changed over the past few years. It's not last click anymore. Attribution is it's a spaghetti junction of where to go with it. It's attributions, everything. So it's about getting the measurement 100% set up correctly as possible. You're never going to be 100% accurate with the data because of things like cookies and privacy and ad blockers and all this sort of stuff. But it's about understanding the bigger picture. It's not just the Google ads you clicked and you made a purchase. It's about people getting to that Google ad. It's about how they understood your brand. It's a much bigger picture. That's why it's so important right now.
Absolutely. That customer journey and really mapping out all the different stages in that customer journey, and then underpinning your measurement strategy to be able to answer to that. I think that the crux of today, your CFO thinks that Google Ads is a money pit. Like how do you what's happening within the industry to make that so hard? Why is it different to how it was before?
I think it comes back to attribution again. I think historically we would be looking at last click and go, okay, that's where the money, revenue or return is coming from. But like you said, because it's just such a different user journey now, where there's a massive research phase, it's not just about that small journey of coming to the website and purchasing. You know, Google famously calls people come to the website as users. You know, the people that come to the website that are your user, but we want to look at the customers and where they came from and actually who's interacted with your brand. It's really about just getting that much holistic view of everything, and Google Ads needs to be part of your overall ecosystem. And then once you understand everything else that's happening around it, you can then understand the budget that you're spending in Google isn't just doing clicks and users to the website. It's doing a much bigger thing to it.
How does GA4 play into that? You know, there's still many marketeers who I see at events who still miss old school Google Analytics. Why did GA4 come along? Tell me a bit more about that.
So GA4 was built for this new world of internet, basically, of the way people use it. Universal Analytics was very old school. It was predominantly on last click attribution. You had different attribution models within it, but they were hidden within the different reports. And GA4 is a much more event-based property and system. But it also looks to understand what users do, not just sessions. It's what that user is doing. You can then identify specific users. You can build cohorts with it. You can build predictive modeling. It's got that built within GA4 as long as you've got enough data to feed it. And they're connecting it all together. So GA4 can connect to BigQuery, which is obviously your data warehouse, which you can do loads of different things with, or you can connect it directly to Google Ads as well. It's about connecting all of these different platforms to understand where the users are coming from. If you think with Google Ads, all Google Ads report on is the performance of your ads, how the ads are running, what the impressions are, what is it costing you. GA4 looks at where your users are coming from and then what they do on the website. Where do they go? What pages they have? You don't necessarily see that information in Google Ads. So it's about connecting everything together.
There was a really interesting WARC report that I was reading, industry report, that was talking about the challenge of the underreporting, you know, paid social underreporting on average by at least 30%. And of course, any of the campaigns that you're running at the bottom of the funnel over attributing revenue because it's underplaying the stages further away at the beginning of that customer journey. But it has been a hot topic, GA4, and I still think a majority of brands aren't really in a great place with their GA4 setup. How do you help our clients be able to improve that?
Well, I think we're in a really privacy-centric world at the moment where GA4 is not as easy to track as it once was. You know, GA4 at this moment in time is about the way the cookie is set on that website, and you have to have a working cookie banner to ensure that you're compliant. I think a lot of people are seeing GA4 where it's not quite accurate because, again, it uses data-driven attribution. So it's kind of like a black box. It tries to just assign sessions and conversions to what it thinks it's right. And then you're going to miss that if someone cancels or declines the cookie banner, because if you're compliant, you shouldn't be tracking it for you. So you've got things like consent mode version 2, which we're able to model that data, but again, it's modeled. And server-side tracking is now coming into play, which is going to change the way we're tracking sessions and conversions, especially across Google.
So we're going to talk about server-side tracking in a bit more detail, and I know that you've got a really good blog that I'll pop up to kind of go into an even bigger level of detail. But there was some big news recently about VPNs. I think you wrote actually again a very useful blog on that. So just a big shout out to our resources page that's carefully curated by Tanya, our content lead. But talk to me about what's happened with VPNs. Why is this impacting things?
So a VPN, for those that don't know, it just masks your IP or where you are in the world. So people are using it because of new legislations that have come in, specifically more in the news around potentially adult websites where you're unable to do that within the UK without providing ID. So the search for VPNs sort of increased after this news, and then it kind of then starts to make you think, what happens if someone is using that VPN on a longer basis or a permanent basis? If you're running campaigns that are specifically targeted for certain areas, these users are not going to see that. And it's not a case of, oh, it might just be a small amount of people, so it doesn't really matter. It's a case of, this is the new way that people are using the website. They're way more privacy centric, and it's about understanding that your setup accounts for all of this as well. You don't want to be left in the dark where you think it's absolutely fine, and then all of a sudden VPN is the norm, and everyone that is in all over the different countries all over the world, your location targeting won't work. And then when you're looking at the performance of that, it's if you're in a different country, Google will start to report that you're in that country. So again, you won't understand what's going on, and it's just about making sure that
if your Google Ads campaign is excluding users in, say, Europe, and your VPN makes it look like you're in Europe, you won't be seeing that ads. And that is definitely where I'm seeing Danny, who just a shout out to Danny, our head of paid media, who is on the last one of these sessions, part 1, which you can watch back on both YouTube and LinkedIn. It is about making sure that your campaigns are set up with this privacy landscape as part of your knowledge, because you could be missing out on a whole load of relevant customers who aren't going to see your ads. This is really new for that marketing directors and marketing managers understand this landscape. They've never had to kind of care quite so much about data and privacy, but it's really important they do understand it, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's where we're heading. I think Google tried to, everyone know about the third-party cookie that Google tried to do, catastrophic fail. They went to 1% of browsers, Chrome browsers, and it just wasn't good for them to do that. So
and this was them basically dropping the third-party cookie that they were going to ban. Yeah,
absolutely. And the impact on Google Ads was so high that they just couldn't do it, especially with 1% of Chrome browsers. But that doesn't mean that the future isn't this new way of using the internet or this new way of tracking. Apple themselves are releasing new privacy within their platforms in iOS 26. And Apple can kind of do it because they don't have an ads platform. They have an ads platform within the App Store, which kind of is irrelevant because it's all native within their own thing. But this new privacy-centric that they're doing, they're actually stripping out the UTMs of your URLs within iMessage, the Apple Mail native app, and private browsing in Safari. So is that the kind of them testing? Is that the next step, that everything in Safari is?
So it might suddenly under attribute email campaigns, for example, but that doesn't mean that those email campaigns weren't working. And it is frustrating, because when you're talking at CFO level or board level, the intricacies of how challenging marketing measurement is aren't always understood. And we've almost got the CFOs hooked on the metrics of, here's this campaign, this is how much it returned. And that nuance, they didn't have nuance before. Now they need to understand that it isn't just one channel, one level of revenue. So this series is all about what plans people need to put in place to address this. And I know you've got some really, really good ideas around the good data foundations and server-side tracking. So talk to me about server-side tracking, first-party cookies, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, cool. So server-side tracking is the way forward, really. So it's not as expensive as some people might think it is. We have a plan at launch where we can create server-side tracking for client using Google Cloud services, so we can even create your own servers for you for it to run. And 3 servers with Google Cloud is $120 a month. So it's really not that expensive just to build those services. And then you need someone like my amazing team to put it together for you. But basically what server-side tracking does is it bypasses the third-party cookie. And what it does is it's still a cookie. So there are still some kind of laws and legislations around it, but it's a first-party cookie and it drops on your domain. So what you do is you can control that data. You can take the data from that user. It's stored on your server under your domain, and then you can control what information you send to the platform, so GA4 and Google Ads. So it's a new way of essentially tracking cookielessly from a third-party perspective, and it's very accurate because it's using server. So things like ad blockers don't come into impact, and third-party cookie banners, if someone declines that doesn't come into impact as well because it's a first-party cookie. We've implemented it for one of our clients, and they're a large self-storage company across the whole of the UK. So they've got loads of different stores across the UK, and we've implemented it on them. And you can see in this slide here that on the left, without server-side tracking enabled, total sessions around 329,000 in the last 90 days. But with server-side tracking, we're seeing 367,000. So we're seeing more of the data that we would have lost. And highlighting Google Ads as well, there's an increase from 179,000 sessions to 205. So 11.4% increase across 90 days. It's not new traffic, it's just traffic that we would not have seen because of third-party cookies or because of the cookie banner. And this is all implemented with Google Cloud, and it's the team at launch that did that for this client. And yeah,
and you run 2 properties, don't you, on GA4, so that you can actually see, has this been a worthwhile investment?
Absolutely, yeah. So the screenshots you see there is we have a QA GA4 property for this client, so we can, if we make any changes, we'll see the impact of it in that QA. For this particular one, that we don't have server-side tracking into that, so we can actually see the difference between the two, which is what you can see here.
Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting, because when we're looking at year-on-year traffic and we see a lot less impressions, or we see a lot less clicks, but maybe spend levels are the same. The issue is that, you know, often that traffic isn't being seen on the website because the cookies aren't deploying, and therefore to be able to track the impact of that advertising becomes all the harder. That's why we're trying to educate and empower marketing teams to know that this is something you have to get familiar with. This is something that you have to understand, because then when you're called in front of your CFO to justify the high levels of media budget versus what returns you're getting, you understand that this has complexity that sits behind it. I think we've covered everything within the server side tracking. I know that we're talking about Google Ads in particular here, but can we just talk a little bit about how Facebook did actually with their CACI? Talk to me a little bit, CAPI.
That's it. Yeah.
So I was going to say about that.
Yeah. So almost Facebook led the way with this, led the industry, because they released the Facebook conversion API towards the end of last year, which is the CAPI. It's also for Pinterest as well. There's a conversion API for that as well. So, and this is exactly what server-side tracking is. So Facebook saw this issue because the Facebook cookie is probably one of the most ones that, you know, a lot of people may want to decline or may want to track, or it can be quite used across different platforms, and they really wanted that accuracy of where these users are coming from. So that's where they released the conversion API. But now Google have got a server-side tracking container in GTM, which is now following suit. So you can then create this server-side tracking across all your different platforms. And the CAPI does bring in results, again, of just much more accurate measurement when you're seeing your campaigns on a Facebook level.
One of the other things that I've noticed that we've been doing is this matrix that you've put together of all of the additional tools. So far we've talked about the importance of first-party data and server-side tracking. Some of these tools that exist now that enable us to enhance that level of data coming through. I'm thinking things like Converge, Class, Suite Analytics, Phosphor, Bloom Reach, where we're enriching audience insights, we're giving a more nuanced approach, or we're giving a more in-depth analysis of all of the different touch points where media or where there are user touch points along that customer journey. How are you finding that conversation you're with our clients, and why have you created this matrix?
I think with the release of GA4, people were so annoyed with it and how different it was, and it's not as potentially as accurate as it was. It's getting a lot better. If you get it set up correctly now, it's a lot better. Things like unassigned traffic was coming through, not set. People just didn't understand it. Data-driven attribution, all of those things. You're starting to find that these companies and softwares are starting to gain interest because they are incredibly accurate. You mentioned Converge and Clara and Suite. They all use server-side tracking within that as well. So all of that is built in. And it's not just GA4 data, it's all of the other platforms with it. I will just take Converge as an example, because you've got Meta, you've got Bing, you've got Google Ads, you've got GA4, you can connect it to pretty much anything, and it just shows you that overall performance. So it's not just about looking at one platform and seeing how that performs, i.e. Google Ads. It's about seeing Google Ads alongside everything else that's sending that data through to you. And most of these platforms, again, we've mentioned the ones that we've mentioned, I know they do it, but most of them allow you to choose the different attribution models as well. It's not just data driven. It's not a black box. It's, I want to see linear, I want to see first touch, I want to see last non-direct. And you can start to see that across all the different platforms, which I think marketers miss, that choice of actually, I want to see where these touch points are, not just being told that this is a conversion from this platform.
The soapbox that we're on at the moment is this brand as a multiplier of performance, and the new funnel of where we're needing to understand performance all the way through that funnel and really build that brand awareness. There is no question that starts with data. That starts getting the budget holders to understand the nuance of where people are appearing in the funnel and being able to shift the budget further up. With Phosphor, we've been able to show our clients that uses that the importance of social, which was being underreported in GA4, is always underreported in GA4. And Walk actually issued a study where they brought together all of these data sources across the industry. And I think it was something like 30% it was continually being underreported. That number, it might be even bigger than that, but big shout out to the guys at Walk who have created a brilliant white paper called The Multiplier Effect. It's my daily reading and something I'm shouting from the rooftops about. But that under attribution, it means that the marketing teams are making decisions which is detrimental to their impact. Their campaigns are not as effective because they can't see that those campaigns are working. That's why investing in data and measurement is so important, because it gives you those signals, that information, that confidence to be able to approach your marketing in a much more full funnel brand as a multiplier of performance. And that's why we've been growing your team, Ian. I mean, there's 4 of you in the team now at launch.
Yeah, there is. And we're very, very busy, which is always good. I think you're right, though. I think it's about the full funnel side of things. And one piece of advice I give to anybody is forget about last click. It's not worth just looking at that anymore. It needs to be everything else around it. And these platforms will allow us to do that. And it's not just about then seeing the performance. It's not just about seeing how well they got there. It's about what you do next with it. And Google are trying to get you into this idea of connecting GA4 Google Ads to BigQuery, for example. That this is now a free connection that was used to cost back in UA days. And it's about getting that data in there, getting that data in a data warehouse and having someone who understands it to then start to look at all of the different touch points, all of the different platforms that are working, where are the nuances, where are the different things that need improvement, what needs to be optimized. And Google have been planning for this for ages. That's why they've recently released Google Meridian, for example, which is a code-based software which allows you to understand the different touch points and spit out things like not just forecasting, but scenario planning, like what would happen to change these.
It's their marketing mix modeling tool being adopted. Enables marketing teams to look at incrementality, be able to understand more depth of their data.
Well, exactly, and that is what we're talking about. Is if Google are trying to get you into this position where you need to understand all your different touch points, we need to follow that, and digital marketers need to follow that, and CMOs need to follow it, because they're providing you the platform to do it. And when you start to put in offline data and all the different channels, it's there, and that's why it's there. Yeah.
And if you look at the latest betas, which I'm probably actually not allowed to say out loud, but one of them roughly, I won't talk about the preciseness of it, but one of them roughly enables more of that full funnel measurement, being able to see where in the funnel that conversion started its journey. I've been doing this 13 years. I've been standing on a soapbox for a long, long time, talking about the importance of data and getting that right. But actually, some of those early adopters who did things like had maybe onboarded a good tool, embraced value-based value-based bidding, made sure they were cookie compliant. I think for all of those people, it is worth revisiting those things. We're doing that for a client at the moment. We, a long time ago, started using value-based bidding for them, using proxy values because they're a lead gen company. And now it's time to look at that again, because we're needing to put more of those softer touch points in and being able to track them, those events that GA4 so loves, because we know that the chance of that cookie being dropped off during the journey is so high. We need to be able to bring more value earlier in that customer journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree. And it's not about necessarily what channel is returned it, that particular conversion. As I said before, it's about understanding, would that conversion have ever happened if that touch point wasn't there in the first place? And it's once we understand that, then you can understand that that budget is going to good use, even though it doesn't necessarily directly give you a conversion and return on investment. If you can pinpoint that your Meta budget or your Google Ads budget has caused that user to come back or to come back again, and that customer lifetime value, that shows the importance of your budget.
Awesome. I mean, customer lifetime value, that could be a whole LinkedIn Live in itself, if only we could get every single marketing team in the world to embrace that more. It's a complex metric, very hard. So e-commerce tends to be better at it than some other industries, but it's a really, really important, one, and why the rise of the CRM manager is such an important role to have in marketing teams, to be able to feed that information through to us. I'm going to just do a shout out in case there are any questions. We've been rattling away, and don't forget, you can watch this on demand. If you're watching it on demand, please do reach out to us. I think I've got have I got a quick, oh look, wowzers. That if you scan, you get my email. So, but yeah, there are events that we're hosting. We've got our big conference also happening next March. But if you do have any questions, quickly drop them in now. We can be in the chat afterwards. If not, then Ian, that was an absolute whistle-stop tour. Really, really informative. Thank you. And it is great to know that you and the team are so on it and proactive, because I know that it's a tough, fast changing part of marketing now, and we're grateful to have you on board.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and it is always changing. So any questions for anyone at all, just let us know or reach out to me, because Google's changing all the time, everything's changing, so we're trying to keep on top of it as best as we can.
Awesome. Well, hopefully today you've learned some things to help you get that measurement right, so that your CFO can be happy that that your marketing is definitely delivering the results that you want it to. So thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.